And the thing is, I do believe there was talk about these things. I believe if we study history, the Confederates were able to shoot pterodactyls, back in the Civil War, and they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online.
Google it
They
yourself.
spread these things out, and this is a historical fact. So, they spread this thing out, and it's got a huge winglet. It was a pterodactyl they shot. So, of course, these things have been around. Now, they went extinct, obviously, slowly, but surely. And so...
What I'm saying is Jesus wrote a dinosaur to work. That's history. It's in the Bible. How to Train Your Dragon.
Historical facts.
And if you don't believe it, do your own research. Pull up Google. You'll find the picture, I promise.
Oh my God.
Thank you, John Gleason, Godless engineer, for gifting me this beautiful moment. Y'all remember when they tried to cancel Steven Spielberg for posing with an animatronic triceratops animal rights activist?
Back it up.
Hit it from the back.
Cloaca. Historical facts.
Eat my ass, BP. You're down here bailing on the rest of us because you don't want to process your grief and shame like a normal person by drinking and mistreating strangers.
No, Rick. It is you who must nibble my cloaca, or bird asshole.
Everyone knows what a cloaca is.
back in the Civil War, and they spread these things out. Anybody can look it up online. They spread these things out, and this is a historical fact. So, they spread this thing out, and this has got a huge winglet. It was a pterodactyl they shot. So, of course, these things have been around. Now, they went extinct, obviously, slowly, but surely. And so...
Paul Bunyan was sharing some Funyuns with his pet velociraptor.
Whoa.
Oh, you thought it was an ox? Roll back the clock. Let me knock the socks off. Historical facts.
I didn't cut out. You heard me. You a pervert or something? Okay.
What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Sorry, just had to take care of some stuff. Real quick, kind of frantically moving around tonight. I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Tonight, we're taking a look at Dinesh D'Souza, claiming that atheists are vampires. Well, okay, so technically he doesn't say that we're vampires, but he does claim that we're afraid of the light. And the only magical creature that I can think of, really, that's afraid of the light's vampires. Although, I guess maybe there are, like, some other things that might be afraid of the light. And it also kind of depends on what kind of vampires. Like, if it's the, what's the sparkly vampires? From, what's the, Twilight. If it's from Perfectly Fine in Twilight, you just sort of sparkle like you've been hugged by a girl that's wearing all that glitter shit. Because I don't know how that's appealing. Like, I don't know why some people feel like they have to glitter like a magical fairy in order to, like, be interesting to people. But apparently that's a thing. Anyways, there's that kind of vampire. But we're talking about the vampires that are afraid of the light, because Dinesh D'Souza says that we're afraid of the light. So I'm kind of curious as to what he means by that. He is using this as a way to convince people that we're morally corrupted, or atheism attracts morally corrupted people or something. I don't know. Anyways, we're going to find out what Dinesh D'Souza is exactly talking about tonight. If you want to fuck around and find out how all atheists are vampires as dictated by Dinesh D'Souza, then please stay tuned. Yes, honey, Dinesh D'Souza is a douche. Thank you for providing that input. Anyways, so what's up, heathens? Tonight we are going to be taking a look at Dinesh D'Souza. If you're new to the streaming stuff that we do here on the Godless Engineer channel, we donate a portion of the proceeds that the GE channel and brand in general makes. And this month we're going to be donating to the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is a fantastic charity that provides a lot of services and stuff for the LGBTQ community. So if you want to help us donate to the Trevor Project, you can help by watching our videos, sharing our content with people that you either love or hate, or you can also send you can send super chats. If you want your voice to be heard, well, not technically your voice, but if you want me to read your chat on stream, add some content to what's being said about the response video or anything that we're talking about here tonight, because we do have a full show, you can send a super chat and I will read them when I get them, and I will interact directly with it and give you my thoughts about it. So you can do that. You can become a Skeptic Mafia member. They enjoy occasional podcasts, occasional meetups, and but one thing they always get is they get to pick the video for Friday night. You know, I say that, but I've thought of a recent time, just recently, where I was like, sorry guys, I got to pull a... One time. There's one time out of like the 52 times I stream in a year, usually... I sort of take the reins, but the Skeptic Mafia does have a lot of great benefits. You get the emojis that you see people posting in the chat, like Jonathan Hanachek. He loves the fail well, and he loves all of the emojis. But anyways, I'd really appreciate it if y'all could help us donate to the Trevor Project. Next month, we're going to be donating to the Transgender Law Center, so keep that in mind. And I guess now with all of that out of the way, y'all ready to get on into the show? Of course, I said that we have a full show tonight. In case you don't know what a full show consists of, we're going to start off with some Today I Learns. I love to tell y'all just random facts that you could throw out in case you're ever on Jeopardy or you want to impress people at a dinner party. In case any of you go to dinner parties, I don't. But you can throw out random facts there. Then we go into comments, where I interact with comments either on the channel or just random comments I find on the internet. And we've got some shitty ass science tonight, and it's the one that I told you about earlier this week, so you know what to expect there, honey. You don't remember, do you?
No.
Okay, you had a very favorable reaction to it, and we're going to find out why.
All right.
Anyways, so Brocephus is coming by. He's going to be telling us all about some shitty science, and then we are going to get into the response video. So, hope y'all are ready for a full show tonight. We're in it for the long haul, because I don't got anything else to do tonight. Well, I mean, other than hang out with you, honey, which is the most important thing of the entire night, is to hang out with you, is to rest and hang out with you later. While I probably play some VR and we watch, I don't know, some kind of like
Ghosty show.
A ghosty show. It's usually either a ghosty show, a serial killer like documentary show, or it's about getting married without knowing the person first. There are like 5 different shows for that, and they all have 17,000 seasons.
We need to watch The Farmer Show.
Oh, we joked about watching The Farmer Show, and now we're actually going to have to watch The Farmer Show?
I mean, we may watch The Farmer Show.
You know, I'm not going to marry no broad that can't throw some hay over her shoulders and feed the cows, or whatever the fuck you feed with hay. I think it's cows. Probably horses too. Anyways, all right, y'all ready to start this show instead of hearing me ramble? All right, so first up is Today I Learned. That's right, honey. And we're gonna switch here. Today I learned. I was a little flat. Normally I have a very bubbly sound and ass. Yeah, I got a bubbly ass. I don't need to tell people about my bubble butt. Gee, he's got a bubble butt. Holy fuck. Everybody keep them away from the kids.
You didn't say bubble, you said bubbly.
What's the...
Which makes it sound like you fart a lot.
Oh, so... okay. I understand.
Okay.
I do fart a lot, though. Bubbly is still a fine...
Both apply.
All right, so first up on Today I Learned, we have that Arthur Tudor, the older brother of Henry VIII, exchanged letters with his fiancée, Catherine of Aragon. Doesn't that sound like a Lord of the Rings thing? Like, I feel like we're talking about the marriage of two characters from Lord of the Rings here. I know that we're not, but anyways, of Aragon in Latin. When they met in person, they were unable to communicate, however, as they had mastered different pronunciations of the language. Can you imagine learning like a language to talk to your significant other and then like they
Still can't fucking talk to him.
well yeah, one person sounds like they're from Scotland and they talk real fast and the other one's like a hick hillbilly. I mean that I feel like that's what it would be. Anyways, so that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting.
They were probably cousins anyway.
They were probably cousins anyway. I mean, probably they were all cousin fucking back then. All right, next up, which I've got to fix this other image over here. All right, next up, according to a study published in Psychological Reports, a workplace's tendency for bullshit does not go unnoticed by its employees. In fact, bullshit in the workplace can even be measured with a new scale called the Organizational Bullshit Perception Scale. And I actually did read up on this particular SciPost article, and it's a real thing. And obviously, bullshit is just basically presenting false information as true. Bullshit news or fake news, just, that kind of thing. And organizational bullshit is when you're in a company or an entity of some kind and you have different tiers of like leadership that are bullshitting their employees, basically lying to them about shit. And the employees notice, and you can see that reflected in like their morale and productivity and all these other kind of indicators. And they found that it works on this kind of scale. So if you have a job where you have a lot of organizational bullshit, you're going to have a lot of morale problems and everything like that. So it's quite interesting, but also nice to know. Don't bullshit your employees, and employees, I guess, perceiving the bullshit that your bosses give you can affect your work. So just be conscious of that.
I used to have a bullshit button at work, but somebody stole it.
Was that Xander? No, Xander had the no button.
I have the no button. No, I had the bullshit button at work.
Work. Yeah, I could just see you popping the bullshit button out during a meeting. Somebody says something really fucking dumb because it happens a lot for her. And she just goes, bullshit! And it just stops and it's just like, I'm sorry, but it's bullshit.
I don't take it to me. I didn't take it to meetings.
You didn't take it to meetings?
No, I
Okay.
just sat on my desk.
All right. Finally, which I don't know if I've covered this before, but did you know that number 2 pencils became the standard primarily due to the electrical conductivity of its lead, graphite? Early scanning and scoring machines couldn't detect marks made by harder pencils, so the number 3s and number 4s, but they usually ended up in erroneous results. And the softer pencils, like number 1, smudge. So number 2 seemed to be the happy sort of area for using pencils on these scanning and scoring machines. So that's interesting. I can't remember if this seems familiar. Like, I feel like I knew this before, and I don't know. It's because I've just been through so much Today I Learned shit that I'm circling back around, but this caught me as pretty interesting. So that's actually going to be it for the Today I Learned section. I don't know if y'all know, but we get a song for every single particular thing here on Segment. Thank you, honey. I totally forgot that word, segment. I work with segments all day at my day job, so I shouldn't have forgotten it. But anyways,
Somebody in the chat's asking to see your complete t-shirt.
So it says, it's okay if you disagree with me. I can't force you to be right. You remember getting this for me?
Yes.
Yeah? This is a shirt that she got me.
Get you all your shirts.
I know. I have 17 million shirts, by the way. All right, y'all ready for comments?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah, Casey's ready. That's the only one that matters. All right, here we go. Comments of the day. Prepare to face bomb yourself in the next week. Woohoo! Wait, no, that was for the Today I Learned section. Because it goes, today I learned, woohoo! And it's the Mario sound. Anyways, all right, let's get to the comments. The comments have a special background, which is the crazy conspiracy board background. All right, so this guy, I'm not sure what he's talking about here exactly, but let's get through it. Pascal show that life come only from life. How the first life come when it is by experiment that life comes only from life. I don't know what words are or how to use them properly, but could you explain this to me? So I don't know what he means by Pascal, but it's Pasteur. Louis Pasteur is the one that came up with the law of biogenesis, which isn't actually a scientific law. That's just what Louis Pasteur called it. And basically what Louis Pasteur's experiment did was show that flies don't spontaneously generate from rotting meat. He shows that flies come from already existing flies whenever they lay their eggs and the larva, the life cycle of a fly. So that's all he showed. He disproved a very religious idea of spontaneous creation and showing that, stuff just doesn't pop into existence like they used to think. They used to think that, living animals just sort of popped into existence from, the natural world or some shit, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, they would have known where babies come from, and it's not too hard to extrapolate like, oh, well, if babies of these particular animals come from other animals of the same kind, then obviously that's probably got to be how flies do it, or these other animals do it. But in any case, so Louis Pasteur did that. He called it the law of biogenesis. And creationists have taken this and sort of ran with it, claiming that you can only get life from existing life. And so God had to be the one to create life in the first place because there's no way to get life from inorganic materials. But that's not what Louis Pasteur showed. Louis Pasteur simply showed that life comes from already existing life. He did not show that life cannot form from inorganic chemicals. And we've done several experiments. We have several, it's a whole niche of science, this abiogenesis research that has shown various levels of how life can develop from inorganic materials. And, people like to point out several famous experiments like the Miller-Urey experiment. That is a pretty big one, showing that we can get amino acids without the need of somebody to create them. They can just naturally form in nature. And so there's that experiment, but we've also got experiments showing that these amino acids can self-organize. We've got experiments showing how they can form, and we've got different models for this prebiotic or this before life actually formed. We've got several different models for how the world could have started out, organically, that is. So it wasn't proven by experiment that life only comes from life. It was just shown that life doesn't spontaneously generate as we once thought it did. So he did not disprove abiogenesis. He wasn't even thinking about that. So thank you from wherever in the fuck. That looks like it's Greek. So thank you from whatever Greece you hail from. What? Greece? Yes, whatever Greece you hail from. Answering, so this is on one of my things, one of my shorts, one of my shorts that blew up pretty well. Mr. Epistivist, Drew's Book Review says, if God did it, then life came from non-life. How can God be life? God is outside of space, time, universe, thus does not qualify as life as we know it. That's true. God wouldn't qualify as life, but they don't claim that he's some kind of like corporeal being or living thing. They just sort of claim he fucking exists in some kind of like way that is outside of space, time, and matter and all this other stuff. Huh? Well, right.
That's Drew's point.
Oh, I know that's Drew's point. I'm just saying that their whole understanding of God only reveals how much they've had to push the goalpost back on their description about God. Because if you think about it, back when like the Old Testament had been collected and written and everything like that, they thought of God as this, physical thing. Well, maybe not God as a physical thing. God was probably incorporeal. But like the heavens and celestial beings and all this other stuff, those were all very physical things. And so at one point in time, God being depicted as this person, like an old sky wizard dude, I would think that at least at some point in time, they definitely considered God, or at least other gods, to be corporeal in some fashion, obviously. So anyways, all right. So thank you so much, Drew, for your member chat. Really appreciate you. Next up, Grant Reborn Official says, look at a bird's wing. Fucking dumbass. Look at all the animals. Look at nanotech inside the cell and the information written on the backbone of DNA. There's your evidence for God. Wake it the fuck up. Get woke, bro. One day every person will stand before the judgment seat of Christ. Repent and turn from your evil ways. I'm on the highway to hell. Quentin Van Boeven's got a ticket to hell, saying, sending in my weekly tithe. Does this assure me a front row seat in hell? Definitely. And I mean, you're on the front seat of it. If not, who would I speak to about the front row seats? I mean, you're already there. I mean, you're the first one to ask for a front row seat. There's still 10 more seats in the front row on the bus to hell. So y'all be sure to get your tickets on the highway to hell. There's 11 front row seats. Yes, honey. Don't question the number of seats in the front row. Okay. Anyways, can y'all tell that I'm not a very good salesman here? Like, buy super chats, get a seat to hell. Okay, so look at a bird's wing. All right, it's not it's not impressive in the way that makes me think God did it. I mean, it's impressive, sure, but not in a way that's like, oh, God must have done this. That's nature is impressive. Nature is impressive by itself. I agree, honey. But I'm just saying that it's not like so impressive that only God could have done it or anything like that. I'm on the highway to hell. Elizabeth Richardson, how big is the bus? Well, let's see. We've got 11 seats in the front, and there's 11 seats on each row. And it goes all the way back, repeating 999 seats behind them, like all the way back. Forever? Yeah, forever. So equals 1. So, yeah. So the bus is 1. Well, I didn't say it was 0.9999. I just said that it was like nine seats in each row after the first row, just repeating, like that's how many rows, 9 infinity of nines all the way back. So there's a lot of seats on the bus to hell. All right, I'm just saying, like I don't want to deny people on that, but there's only 11 front row seats. Just saying. Anyways, look at all the animals. Okay, I don't know what that's supposed to prove. This is a look at the trees, or maybe a look at the cows, look at the dogs, look at the cats. They're assholes.
You know, this is not impressive to me. My eating hole is like the same hole as my breathing hole, and that's fucking dumb.
Yeah, honey, the eating hole being the same as the breathing hole is pretty dumb, and putting the sewer next to an amusement park is not all that great either. So, just saying. Some people use the sewer as a playground, so I guess that works. They call it a salad, but it doesn't look like a salad.
Some people also use the eat and breathing hole for a playground.
Yeah. All right, so look at the nanotech inside the cell. I don't see any nanotech. Like I see biological systems. Like I see different things that are explained by nature. I see natural mechanisms, natural processes that occur in the cell, but nanotech, like I don't see like nanotech as we understand nanotech. If y'all are wondering, I'm drinking an Arnold Palmer. I have such a hard time saying that thing. Arnold Palmer tonight. I've actually got 2/3 lemonade, 1/3 tea. And then we got Dragon Master sending in a super chat. Look at the cats, is what Dragon Master said. Thank you, Dragon Master. You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong. I like how the sucking dong alert right there says that the people that donate and that get that alert sniff straight candy corn. They sniff straight candy corn off Jesus' dong. Anyways, all right. A weird kink, but we don't shame. That's right. Anyways, so the information written on the backbone of DNA, I mean, we can interpret DNA as information. We can definitely classify it as information, but it requires us as individuals, like with a mind and all this other stuff, to recognize it as that. It's not like, it's information in the same way that like binary data is information. That this information, the only way this information could have come about is by an intelligence, just like, any kind of binary data that is out there that is meaningful in any kind of way. That's quite different than like the information that's in DNA. The information in DNA is more like natural information, which forms naturally. So, let's see. There's your evidence for God. No, I'm already awake. Obviously, I'm reading the fucking comments. One day every person will stand before judgment seat of Christ. See, this is the thing, is that like one day every person will stand there and be judged by Jesus. But if you're an evangelical, which is what I think that this person is, that you're only judged by whether or not you believe in Jesus. If you believe in Jesus and you get, it doesn't matter what you did with your life. It doesn't matter if you're bad or good, or you do bad or good things. When you get to heaven, it just depends on whether or not you believe in Jesus. And if you do believe in Jesus, then you get into heaven. That's one particular interpretation of like Christianity and how to get into heaven. And it's an evangelical Protestant sort of interpretation of it. And he says, repent and turn from your evil ways. But when I read this coming from a Christian, like an evangelical Christian especially, when they say evil ways, like I don't actually think my ways are evil. I think that they don't like things that I believe because it's contrary to what they believe. And what they believe is that the most paramount thing in my life should be God and Jesus. And because I don't believe that, and I don't make that a priority, that makes anything I do evil. And therefore, anything that they do is evil, but the only thing good that they do is believing in Jesus. And when you really kind of recontextualize what they mean by evil ways in this particular context, it really kind of takes a lot of the oomph out of, I mean, not saying that people take people like this seriously in the first place, but I'm just saying, like, if you do have a problem with that, like people calling you evil and all that other kind of stuff, recontextualize it and realize what they're actually saying. And what they're actually saying is, you don't believe in Jesus! You're evil! For not believing in anything else there. No, just you don't believe in Jesus, then that's bad. Okay, well then I'm good. Like, I feel better about myself now. So, anyways, all right, let's move on to the next thing. For some reason, my OBS is opening up to the last, like the last live stream I did, so it's not helpful. All right, so this is Faker 18 coming in. I feel like I should be on a CB radio for this one. Faker 18 coming in. 4 years later. And the government admits to aliens / UFOs being real and are being taken seriously. Well, I mean, yeah, there's that whole UFO thing, but UFO just means unidentified flying object, which can be anything because it's not identified. It's unidentified. Like, UFO doesn't mean alien. It just means we don't know what the fuck that is. Kind of thing. And they're not admitting to aliens being real, although I do think that there is probably extraterrestrial life out there. It's probably nowhere near us, considering how large like the universe is and how large our galaxy is. I mean, we probably have not encountered aliens whatsoever. So, I mean, neither of these things are true in the way that he is talking about it. The UN talks about the NWO all the time. I haven't heard anything about this New World Order being spoken about by the UN. I don't know of any efforts to unite the entire world under some kind of New World Order, which would include dissolving governments or dissolving countries in general. Like, I've not heard of any of that. Have y'all heard of any of that? I haven't heard of any of that. It sounds like bullshit to me. Guess he was more right than you thought he was. Oh, Mao. I also like how you can't disprove anything he says. Maybe not, but at least I can spell you properly. But I do feel like I definitely responded to and debunked everything that he was saying, because conspiracy theorists, they rely on taking bits of information that are true, just like with the UFOs and the aliens thing. Take bits of information that are true, and then you extrapolate to tell whatever narrative you want to tell from there with unsupported information. And you just sort of lightly connect things without actually proving that those things are connected. And so, I mean, it's rather easy to take down conspiracy theorist arguments. Let's see. Like when he talked about the MK Ultra. What's MK Ultra? MK Ultra program, for example. You just state your opinion on the matter. Well, I mean, obviously obviously he's talking about MK Ultra. But with MK Ultra being like, you know, a secret program, that it was a real program, but see, that's the thing, is that they take the nugget of truth and then they extrapolate from it. And so they make this MK Ultra thing be much bigger and widespread than it actually was. So, I mean, I don't know what he means by the whole MK Ultra thing. I haven't actually watched that video since I put it out. But anyways, which is your opinion? There's more evidence that they still do it today than not. Okay, but you failed to provide any of that. Like, this is the entire comment. He doesn't provide any evidence for it or anything like that. So it just completely takes the wind out of his sails there by not providing this information. You just blindly follow whatever the government tells you. I don't. Like, I try to think critically about the information I receive, so I don't know what he's talking about there. Also, how do you know what the fuck I do? Why would they let the information out if they are still using MK Ultra when we know it was a horrible experiment? Okay, I don't understand that last part there. Why would they let the information out if they are still using it? So he's saying that they're not using it because they let the information out. Or is he saying that all the information they let out is lies and therefore we know that it's still being used? You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong. That's right. Daniel M. David says good night. Good night, David. I hope you have an awesome weekend there, bud. And you have a great Sunday with your dad because it's Father's Day on Sunday. Make sure you give him a really big hug for me because, you know, dads out there need big hugs on Sunday, okay? See you later there, David. Thank you so much there, Daniel. All right, let's move on to the next comment because that's just a whole bunch of fucking nonsense there. I believe we've got a few more before we get to the shitty ass science. Okay, so Mental Warfare says if atheism can't account for, or it's impossible for atheism to account for consciousness, then it's certainly not a non sequitur. If a worldview simply cannot and will not give a probable explanation that explains most, if not all, of the data, then it is certainly not a good worldview. Well, luckily, atheism itself is not a world fucking view, so it doesn't need to explain consciousness. It's literally just saying, hey, I don't believe in God. What are you going to do now? Yell at me for transgressing your God's opinion? I have my own opinions. I don't let some asshole wizard tell me what to think. But in any case, atheism doesn't need to account for consciousness, like, at all, because it's not a worldview. Now, there are worldviews out there, I guess, that can be atheistic, but that's just one particular, like, attribute of a worldview. But as far as consciousness goes, I feel like we can relatively explain consciousness as an emergent property of complex central nervous systems. And we know that consciousness is linked physically to the physical anatomy of our brain. And we know this due to, what's that fuck that had the railway spike drived up his nostrils? Somebody is gonna correct me in the comment section. We've got Daniel M sending in his member chat saying David started playing Breath of the Wild. He fell off the plateau once and said, "Sorry, Link, accidents happen." That's crazy. You know, Xander one time when he was a lot younger, he was playing Minecraft and he killed the dragon at the end, but he felt so bad about killing the dragon, he created this memorial in Minecraft for the dragon and then stood there and cried about it. And it was the sweetest fucking thing to see, like, a small child do. Like, he felt so bad about killing the dragon that he built, like, a little shrine for the dragon and mourned for it. And it was just the cutest fucking thing. Oh, yeah, Phineas Gage. Phineas Gage shows us that our consciousness or our behavior, personality, and all that is physically linked to, you know, our brain physiology and our neurochemistry and all this other stuff. Because Phineas Gage had his brain altered. I think a railway spike is what got shoved through his head or something. But anyways, it changed his brain physiology and it injured him, but it changed his behavior. He was different afterwards. And so, I mean, it shows that our consciousness is linked in some kind of way to our brain's physiology. So, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to think that consciousness is some magical thing that can only come about by a magical sky wizard creating it or giving it to us. It makes more sense for consciousness to just be an emergent property. So this will never be a good argument for God. Like this whole consciousness argument, for me at least, it's never going to be a good argument because I feel like they have to make inroads on proving magic first. and then make inroads on proving how like our consciousness isn't somehow tied to our brain physiology, and it requires magic for it to be there. So I just don't think it'll ever be like a good argument for God. All right, next is a twofer. So this is on a video where I called this guy the Muslim Ray Comfort, because I mean it was like a man on the street asking questions kind of thing, and he was twisting things around just like Ray Comfort does, but from an Islamic perspective. This guy says, "Stop throwing lies around saying that we have evidence for human origin. Atheists don't. It's a lie that is being taught now." So, I mean, scientists have this evidence for human origins. The fossil record has the evidence for human origins. Our genetics has the evidence for human origins. So, I mean, I don't know what in the hell he's talking about here, how it's a lie, when we literally have the physical evidence there that shows that it's a fact of reality. It's a fact that we developed out of this proto-ape creature along with the other great apes. Like, that's just a fact at this point. Then Merle Walton, I always like that name, Merle. Merle says, "I have evidence that my father was once a giant. He was a gigantic man and could hold me in one hand." You know, that reminds me, I did that one time with Xander. Maybe I was a giant. Anyways, so this
I don't know if y'all know this, but when you get to heaven, your moral actions are not judged. You're only judged for believing in me. Thank you.
So, this one time, Xander was sick. He had a fever, and he was throwing up and everything, and I was taking care of him. And, I didn't have anybody to pass Xander off to, and so Xander threw up on my shirt. And of course, I wasn't like mad at Xander, but I did have to get my shirt off. So basically, I had to do this super dad thing where I held him by his butt in one hand, right? And I quickly went and took my shirt off, and then switched hands, and I finished taking my shirt off. I bet y'all thought I was going to show titties on air, huh? But I took my shirt off with one hand. Like, I held onto him with one hand. So, am I a giant now? Like, was I a giant at that point?
You have pretty big hands.
I mean, I do have pretty big hands. You know what they say about guys with big hands? We can grab onto basketballs with one hand.
And you need big gloves.
And then you can dunk.
You can't dunk.
I can't dunk?
No.
If it's low enough, I can dunk. Like, shut the fuck up. As long as the goal's low enough and I don't have to jump all that high, I can dunk. Anyways.
The basket?
Huh?
The basket?
Yeah, what did I say?
Goal.
What? I'm not a sports person. You know what I meant? The basket. Fuck. Anyways, I can dunk a ball in a basket. Anyway, so I was a giant once. I found out today. I learned. Today I learned I was a giant at one time because I could hold my son with one hand when he was a baby. Wahoo! Anyways, this is the same evidence you have for the Big Bang. I don't think that it's the same evidence that we have for the Big Bang. I mean, we have literal pictures of the aftermath of the Big Bang, like the cosmic microwave background radiation. That's the result of the Big Bang, or the inflation event that inflated our universe. We've got several other things like gravity waves that are predicted on the Big Bang model and everything. So it's definitely not the same thing here. This is not the same thing. So we had Ramblins and Beyond, who says other arguments against the soul: dementia, Alzheimer's, multiple personality disorders, which I think technically the medical term for multiple personality disorder is dissociative identity disorder, or DID. just that came up, and I always thought that was interesting. So I always try to use that to refer to multiple personality disorder. But anyways, the fact memories can alter with time. The fact memories can be lost. Schizophrenia, drugs and alcohol, lobotomies. Need I say more? Nope. I mean, I think that's totally reasonable there. All of those things definitely prove that your consciousness or your personality, what makes you is definitely physiologically connected to your brain state, or the physiology of your brain, your neurochemistry of your brain. I mean, you could have your neurochemistry fucked up for one reason or another and develop issues later. So I mean, that's that's just how shit works. Thank you so much, there, Ramblings and Beyond. I hope you didn't take it as me like correcting you or anything. I think that saying multiple personality disorder is perfectly fine. I think that's the clinical way to refer to it, but that's just me. Anyways. All right. And then I think we got one last comment. Which is, it's not so much a comment, it's like a question that was posed somewhere. Oh yeah, it was on Twitter. Says, "Dear atheist, what made you convinced that God doesn't exist?" Well, I don't say that God doesn't exist, because like God can mean like literally any God out there, any definition of God. I think that there could be a God out there that just sort of accidentally created this universe and then just laid back and watched TV or something like that. Like just some God that started the universe and then just let it run and didn't fuck with it anymore. There's no way that we're going to be able to disprove that. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, there's definitely no God out there. I'm just saying, like, in that way, I'm agnostic. But as far as any definitions of God that we have, I would say that none of them have actually comported with reality. Like, there's no supporting evidence that actually says that they exist. Therefore, none of them exist. Yahweh doesn't exist, which is typically the God that is mentioned whenever people, anywhere say God, they mean Yahweh. Any definition of God now doesn't comport with reality, so none of them exist. I sort of leave like a small sliver of possibility for a God to exist that we just won't ever be able to prove. But I would consider myself atheist in general. And anytime anybody tries to define a God, I feel like they're going to have a really hard time unless it's like this super ambiguously defined type of God. I don't think that you're going to have all that useful of a definition. So for all intents and purposes, I say that God doesn't exist. But if you could provide sufficient evidence to prove that some God exists, then I'm perfectly fine acknowledging that a God exists. But as it stands right now, I know of no evidence that does that. So for me, God just simply doesn't exist. I hope that answers it, but in any case, hey, are you interested in this question? I know some people can't send a super chat right now, but if you're watching on the replay or whatever, let me know in the comments below what you think about this question. You can tell the question to fuck off, or you can answer it. Doesn't matter to me. It's all engagement. But speaking of engagement, make sure you smash that like button. That'll really help us out here. We're at the end of the comment section. We're going to go directly into the shitty ass science question, but I got to get Brocephus. I know he was looking for his hat and shit earlier, so we got to find that real quick. But anyways, enjoy this little intro thingy. I'll be right back with Brocephus ready to explain shit to y'all.
Shitty ass science! We're gonna answer some science shit really wrong.
No, I couldn't find my hat. Shit. Where could my fucking hat be? The devil hid my hat from me. Well, Brocephus, obviously the devil didn't hide the hat from you. It's just not here right now.
Where is it?
I should have looked for this hat beforehand, and now oh, good, my ass isn't on TV. Got it. It's somewhere in here. I don't fucking know. Oh, wait. I found a different hat, but I still got my glasses.
Okay.
Whew! All right, here we go. Seamless transition here. This is an old shitty ass science. Hold on, I gotta get this shit fixed over here. GE is slacking. What the fuck is up with this guy? You need to get him back on track, okay? Yeah. Are you gonna do that? Gonna get his ass back on track? Come on now. You're the brains of this operation over here.
What?
You heard me?
You try to control him.
Why do I have to be the one to control him?
You don't. I'm just saying try and see how well it fucking works and then tell me to do it.
What? I don't know why you gotta get all like fucking like that about it. Shit, I was just saying control your man. Fuck.
What?
Control your dude.
I'm not his
He's shitting. Listen, he's really fucking shit up and he needs to fix his shit.
He's fine. You quit being mean.
Okay, well, I ran this shitty ass science by you and you laughed hard about it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna pee and then I'll be right back.
Okay.
Say hi to everybody. You're being rude.
What's up, y'all godless heathens? Y'all going to hell yet? Well, I hope y'all go to hell soon. Anyways, alright, here we go. Here's shitty ass science. Why did cavemen have such large penises? Whew, that is one pencil dick motherfucker. Also, why does this sumbitch have a tail? What is, like, that's not even a correct head. Like, what the fuck's up with this dude's neck? He don't have no arms, but he's got a giant dick, and are his legs on backwards? Like, this individual's fucked up. The only positive thing working about him is his giant pecker here. So, I mean, I can understand why somebody would want to emphasize this. I don't know what in the fuck. He's got a long dick and a tail.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Or maybe that's two dicks. Maybe he's like peeing, right? Like he's standing behind like this, and he's got one dick that's just sort of hanging off, and then he's holding the other dick, and that's why he don't seem to have no arms, because he's actually peeing, but he's peeing in two directions.
Or maybe this one is a club.
I mean, that could be a club, but I'd prefer to think of it as a dick, actually.
I'm sure you'd prefer.
So, I mean, so basically, cavemen, they grew up with no arms, had long necks with a beak on the thing. These are human avian. What was that? Homo avianus or something. And they had large dicks, and when they would fly, this guy couldn't fly, obviously, because this was a wingless version. But, you know, when they'd fly or they'd walk around, they'd just drag that big dick everywhere. And it's like, hey, what's up there, Cletus? And Cletus is like, just having a dick day. all the while, they got the tail there that's sticking out the back end. And it's just like, oh, you're shaking your tail. I know. That's because I'm dragging my dick across the floor. Where's your tiny pecker there, Phil? Is it a lot? I don't think so. What's he drinking tonight? Has this got moonshine in it?
No.
I liked it with moonshine.
I know you would.
Woo! All right, so there you go. This is actually not a caveman. This is the Homo avianus. They didn't have wings. There were some versions that had wings, but this one didn't. This was a flightless, wingless Homo avianus with a big dick. And that's what this is. I bet y'all didn't know there was winged human-type animals back then, and they fought with their dicks, actually. That's like, you know, in Spaceballs when he's like, I got the Schwartz.
You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong.
They just went around everywhere. It was like, hey, Phil, I got a word to have with you. And he whipped out his giant dick and was like, let's battle. What? He's like, ah. Like, the more they fought, the harder their dicks got. KC is over there and she just wants me to continue. Well, she just wants me to leave. You tell him to put my blanket back. I saw him go get it.
He didn't get it.
I got eyes. I mean, I know I got...
You're wearing your Christ glasses. You can't see shit with
I
them.
always wear them, so I'm used to it, and I saw that motherfucker.
No, you didn't. You didn't see shit.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's because of that scary show we watched the other night. And then all them sounds that happened afterwards. The creaks and the cracks and everything like that.
Pretty fucky, wasn't it?
It was kind of weird how it happened after we watched that show. Yeah, I was there too. I bet you didn't see me there, huh?
I saw you.
Okay. Anyways,
You think you can go anywhere and someone not see you?
I think that I'm like Drax. If I eat slow enough, people can't see me. Watch. I'm going to disappear on screen. Watch.
No, they can still see you.
Fuck. Anyways, all right. I'm going to head on out of here because she's uncomfortable around Dick. And I guess that makes a lot of sense for GE. I'm just saying. Anyways, I will see you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up, go fuck off to hell, and all this other stuff. I know y'all been buying tickets to hell. I mean, come on. Anyways, I will see you heathens later. Don't forget to do all that kind of shit. Bye, y'all. Your button's broke, GE. Fuck.
Shitty ass science! We're gonna answer some science shit really wrong.
So sorry, honey. I mean, he just gets rowdy about it, you know?
Yes,
He's
I know.
crazy.
I know he's crazy.
He's just fucking insane and shit.
I know.
Maybe we should kick him out and take his blanket.
No.
No? Why not?
Let's proceed this. We're gonna take it.
I mean, that's...
Fuck
You
that.
see what he did?
He didn't do... You did that.
I'm just saying, we need to get rid of his ass, take his blanket, and then, like, show it to him.
No. We're mean to each other.
Well, that's because he's mean to me first, so he's kind of asking for it. Anyways, I don't know what the fuck this is, and y'all try to figure it out. It's probably a club. It's not his dick. I'm sure that'll make KC a little bit easier about it. Anyways, we're gonna go on ahead, go on the response video here. So let's switch on over. Boom! For some reason, the only way that we can get Dinesh D'Souza's video is if we project it on this old ass fucking TV. For some reason, that's the way in which he decided to put it together. It's the only way that we can actually view it. It's in this weird aspect ratio that doesn't even fit this screen. I bet you we could probably contort the video. Hold on. Nope, that's not how that works. Oh yeah, it's shift. See, that just makes them look weird. Okay. There we go. All right. Dragon Master says, "Be nice to your twin, GE." The fuck? What do you mean not nice to him?
Gonna Tate.
Elizabeth Richardson says, GE Brosifus is the YouTube version of The Rock and Dwayne Johnson. I'm going to open up a can of whoop-ass. I actually didn't see too much of, like, The Rock as he was wrestling and everything. The Rock came after I stopped watching wrestling. All right, so this is Dinesh D'Souza. He's an internet dipshit. He's had several conversations with people that have not gone well for him, but he thinks that they've gone well for him. You know, he's just kind of an all-around shithead. If you can see behind him are movies that he's produced.
If y'all don't recall, he produced a movie. What was it called? Like 2,000 Mules or 5,769.
2,000 Mules sounds right.
2,000 Mules. I think it's 2,000 Mules. Anyways, he's got shit things back there. You've got he for some reason. Now I'm kind of curious about this. I don't want to watch the movie. I'm sure you're thankful for there, hon. But the one that's like right behind, as we're looking at him off to his left, right behind him, the Abraham Lincoln that is merged into Donald Trump. I have no idea what that movie could be about. Like, and that's like an egregious treatment of Abraham Lincoln. Like, how in the fuck are you going to compare those two? Especially to the point where you merge them together as if to say that they are, they resemble the same person, right? Like, that's just, anyways. So, as you can tell, the title is Why Atheism is the Opiate of the Morally Corrupt. I don't know why he's calling vampires morally corrupt. Some of them are just trying to be good people, living their lives. Just, out there doing their thing. Sure, they got to drink the blood of innocents, but they're still productive citizens of society. That's what I would be saying if vampires were a real fucking thing. And so, given that vampires aren't a real thing, nobody here is afraid of the fucking light. But we're going to get to that here in a second. So let's just go on ahead, listen to what Dinesh has to say. And I'm sure that it's just going to be the best shit out there. This is going to be the best arguments coming from Dinesh D'Souza.
I've been talking about the hidden psychological motives of skepticism and atheism, and making the point that these ideologies, these ways of thinking are appealing because they help people to avoid moral accountability.
Now, I like how he just goes right into it with this whole moral accountability bullshit. Because I have never understood this particular argument for or against atheism. Primarily because typically it's made in light of either Islam or atheism, right? Like, oh, they don't want to be part of my respective religion because my respective religion has to hold them accountable for their moral actions. And I don't see that actually happening. Like in the religions themselves, especially evangelical Christianity, which is what Dinesh D'Souza represents. In evangelical Christianity, you just have to believe in God, believe in Jesus as God in order to get into heaven. And it doesn't matter what your moral actions are as long as you believe in Jesus, right? Now, there are some evangelicals that kind of argue their way around this by saying that, oh, well, if you truly believe in Jesus, like in the way that would allow you to get into heaven, then you would just do good things. But at that point, you could argue with them about, well, what does it mean to do good things, or what are good actions according to the Bible? And you can get into the theology of it, which we might bring up here in a little bit. But basically, the good things to do are just to keep Jesus like at the head of everything that you do. Like everything you do for Jesus, and as long as you do that, you're good on whatever moral action you make. Typically, a lot of evangelicals will confuse our current understanding of societal norms with their view of their religion's moral rules and obligations. And you see this a lot in like William Lane Craig and Dinesh D'Souza, Frank Turek, J. Warner Wallace, Lee Strobel. God, how many more apologists can I name? But you see it in all of these people confusing societal norms that have been normalized over hundreds and thousands of years, and claiming that, oh, this represents Christianity. But at that point, you could just take a look at how Christianity has changed on those moral rules and those moral norms, because Christianity does not have a very favorable past when it comes to societal norms, because they try to keep the status quo of whatever grants them the most power in society, or grants them the most control over people, and so they have a very sordid moral history. Anytime anybody tries to say that there's an absolute moral foundation contained within Christianity, the easiest refutation of that is just to look at like how Christianity's foundational position on slavery has changed, or women's rights, or the rights of people in general, on on religious freedom. You could pick any of these particular topics and take a look at Christianity and how it's changed in light of shifting social norms, and you can easily refute this whole idea that Christianity provides an absolute moral foundation, or that Christianity represents a God who is the absolute moral foundation, or is the foundation for all that is good. And at that point, you could attack their argument from several different avenues, being that God has directly ordered some pretty heinous shit in the Old Testament. And so how do you reconcile that with this claim that God is the moral foundation? And so, I mean, this is just where my mind goes in this particular conversation. I feel like I've dealt with it enough to where I can map out every single response somebody can give me, and I can just sort of lead down this moral path of bullshittery that they usually try to spin. And it's like every apologist does it. And so, anyways, I'm going to let him talk now. I've been talking a lot.
And Christianity, I want to emphasize, is in fact a religion that demands a certain degree of moral accountability. Now,
does it though? Like, does Christianity actually demand moral accountability? Because from my recollection of both Catholicism and Protestantism, I mean, you have an easy way to reconcile this moral accountability, or this any kind of moral issues you might have, and that's asking God for forgiveness. I mean, it's right there in the theology of asking God for forgiveness. It's a selling point, especially with evangelicals, that God will forgive any sin. There's no sin that's too great except for telling God to fuck off and I don't believe in you. Like, that's the only sin that you can't come back from, is making fun of the Holy Spirit and its tiny dick. And so, like, that's the only thing that you can't come back from. Everything else is equal in the eyes of God. Like, you could murder a person and then steal a Snickers, and it doesn't matter. They are both sins, and they are both going to send you to hell evenly, unless you ask for forgiveness from God. And then it's all washed away. It's totally forgiven because God decided to kill himself on a cross while blaming the Jews for it. And that apparently changed his opinion about sin. Somehow. I don't really understand the physics or any kind of like actual explanation behind that other than theological explanations. But in any case, all of this to say that I don't think that there's actual moral accountability in Christianity. We got Daniel M with the super chat.
Just wanted to say you don't have to be a good person to get into heaven. You just got to suck my dick.
That's right. Daniel M says all you have to do is say, Father, forgive me, for I am about to sin. There's definitely some Christians that treat it that way. There are other Christians that believe, like I was talking about before with Ray Comfort, he believes that if you truly believe in Jesus, then you won't do anything bad. So anybody that does do something what he classifies as bad, then they aren't truly Christian, which just ends up in a no true Scotsman fallacy. So, I mean, Dinesh D'Souza's video here already is causing more questions than it actually gives answers to. He's trying to armchair psychoanalyze atheists without actually knowing any atheists or speaking to any atheists about these things. He's trying to divine the secret meanings or the secret reasons behind people all being, or atheism drawing people away from Christ. And I feel like you would need to do like interviews and all this other stuff, and like do like an actual study on this kind of thing. But all we got is Dinesh D'Souza sitting in front of all of his movie posters for all of his shitty conspiracy theory movies, which makes me think that this is just a conspiracy theory, just another conspiracy theory that is concocted up, which means that he takes a small nugget of truth and then he expands on it, weaving this narrative, but he loosely weaves this narrative without any supporting information behind it. One way that you can tell this is that he doesn't provide any studies to back up this whole idea that he's divining the secret reasons as to why people are atheist. And apparently the only reason why people are an atheist is because we just want to sin. We don't like sin, and we don't want to be held accountable for sin. But here's the weird thing. In Christianity, like I said before, there's an easy way to just wash that sin away. Ask Jesus for forgiveness. That's one way to do it. Recommit yourself to Christ or whatever in the fuck you do for that. Dunk yourself in water, have somebody else dunk you in water. But ultimately it's asking God for forgiveness. Whereas atheists, we don't believe in sin. So sin isn't really a concern for us, at least not in the same way that he's concerned about sin. And it's not that we leave Christianity so that we don't have to worry about sin. That's just sort of a tangential effect of leaving Christianity. I mean, we leave Christianity and therefore we don't believe in sin. We don't care about transgressing God's opinion. And it therefore doesn't affect us. But as a driving force for people leaving Christianity, I don't find sin to be a motivating factor, because there's such an easy way to just wash that sin away. Where's the motivation? What about sin is motivating people to leave Christianity? Because it's not that they can't figure out a way to like stop sinning or to rectify their sins. They easily have that available to them already. So where's the motivation?
People say, well, no, Dinesh, Christianity is about love. It's about forgiveness. It's about, well, it is. But let's remember that the love and forgiveness are temporal, which is to say that they apply to this life. And they're also, to a point, conditional.
I'm sorry, but God's love and shit is conditional. Like, I like how he's painting the conditional aspect of this as like somehow a negative, like these are conditional things. Well, I mean, if God's not conditional, like outside of just believing in me, then can you really be forgiven of these sins? Like, I feel like the sin, like the whole unconditional forgiveness thing in Christianity works against it in this respect, because that means that there are no conditions on forgiving your sin. You can be forgiven of sin all day long. God will still forgive it because there are no conditions on it. You just got to believe in Jesus. That's the only condition that they have. Whereas outside of that, if you do something what you would consider bad, like you maybe you slap your sister around, like you have to deal with the consequences of your moral actions in real life. And he shits on this by saying, oh, all of this is temporal, meaning that it's time boxed to your lifetime, and it only exists in this reality. It's like, yeah, I care about shit that exists in this reality. I don't care about shit that exists outside of reality that we don't know exists or not.
Christian forgiveness stops at the gates of hell, and hell is an essential part of the Christian scheme. So while the God,
you know what's also hell is also an essential part of Zoroastrianism, which is where Christianity got the concept of a burning hell and hellfire and sending people there for the bad shit that they do in their life, or for however you want to define that. Yeah, I mean, it's also key to Zoroastrianism. So should we believe in Zoroaster now? Because Zoroastrianism has a hell?
Gospels talk about the good news. The books also contain a lot of warning messages to prepare us for ultimate judgment. There is a reckoning, and scripture says that many people are extremely eager to avoid that reckoning. Listen to this, John.
Dragon Master says, if love is conditional, then it's not love. I completely agree. It's definitely not love if it's conditional.
You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong.
So now Dinesh is about to read about how we're looking to avoid judgment. But see, the thing is that he's applying these concepts that are stated in this Bible, and he's trying to say, oh, this is the reason why atheists are atheists. Like, this is the reason why they're not Christian. And I feel like if you've got your propaganda book and your propaganda book says, oh, this is why people don't believe in the propaganda. It's because they don't want to be judged. And the atheist is sitting over there like, I don't care about your judgment, bro. In fact, I mean, if your God judged me as not being worthy of his presence, I would take that as a fucking compliment. Have you read what's in the Old Testament? Because I don't think that you have.
On 3:20, everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed.
There's lights everywhere and I'm afraid of it. I don't have a cape, but I'd have a cape like I'm a vampire. Mathwiz says at least he admits it's conditional, unlike WLC.
You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong.
Thank you so much there. Jesus. So yeah. But he basically says that, we're afraid of the light being God, because it shines a light on our sins. But if you notice, like, what Dinesh is saying here is that sins is synonymous with good moral acts or bad moral acts. And so with that understanding, he thinks that we just don't want our bad actions to be highlighted and exposed. But in reality, what sin is transgressing God's opinion. God's opinion is that you should put him first above everything, and you need to do everything that he commands you to do, and you need to do everything with him in mind first. So it literally doesn't matter what your moral actions are. It only matters as to whether or not you believe in Jesus and God, and Jesus as the only way to God. And given that the Old Testament has God committing a lot of atrocities, ordering the Israelites to commit a lot of atrocities, it doesn't make sense to equate sin with
wine money. I can actually just make wine.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to equate sin with like bad, or what he would say evil moral actions, because there's a lot of evil or moral actions commanded by God that are abhorrent now. So that's obviously not what God means in his book. Jester says, Dinesh, come on, it's 420, not 320. Don't be a square.
So right here you have the heart of what I've been trying to show, which is that if you don't like the light, you're going to want to deny its existence. You're going to want to say, hey, no, darkness is all we have. We have to live in the darkness because that's all there is.
Now, this kind of assumes that atheists think in the context of Christian theology. And I feel like that's totally the wrong thing to do, because obviously if somebody has decided that they don't believe in God anymore, they aren't going to be concerned with whether or not God shines a light on what he considers sin, on what Dinesh D'Souza specifically considers sin. We're not concerned with that. We don't care. I mean, over here on the atheist side, we have to actually deal with bad moral decisions, bad moral actions. We actually have to rectify that in reality. We don't get to just psychically transmit how sad we are to a magical wizard so that he can erase his like little tally marks on his docket book. Like we don't have that luxury. We actually have to solve these issues for ourselves. We have to determine whether or not some moral action is good or bad. We have to determine whether or not we're okay with committing some kind of bad moral action or moral decision. We don't have some book to tell us what is good or bad, like Dinesh seems to think that he does. So we're not thinking in the context of Christian theology. This is a propaganda book. Revelation is definitely part of the propaganda, but it's telling its believers the propaganda about the outgroup. And so it makes no sense to me to open up your propaganda book and just repeat the propaganda that's in there that we've already rejected. We don't care about your God shedding light on any fucking thing because we don't believe in your God. But that doesn't make our bad or evil or negative moral actions and decisions go away. We actually have to deal with those things. We don't get to just magically wash them away and say that it's all forgiven without actually having to deal with it. That's religious people.
And you're not making an objective statement about reality. You're making a psychological statement about the way you want things to be. So the point here is not that atheists are evil people, that they do more evil than everybody else. My point is that atheism provides a kind of hiding place for those who don't want to acknowledge and repent of their sins.
Dinesh D'Souza, who used his fame and especially as a religious apologist to hide his extramarital affairs, is now claiming that atheists leave Christianity to hide their bad moral actions. Like the only people that I see using their respective worldviews, whether it's an atheistic type of worldview or a religious worldview, the only people that I see using their worldview as some kind of hiding place are religious people. Now, that's not to say that, in certain instances in the atheist community, have there been situations that people have been able to hide for some time, and get by with, these bad moral decisions and actions. But the point, but it's not like they've used that to hide, it's not like they've used atheism necessarily to hide their moral actions or reconcile their moral actions. But what I see a lot of is religious people using this shield of God whenever they fuck up and be like, oh shit, I fucked up. I was fine with it, but now everybody knows. And so now I have to do this performative thing where I feel bad about it, and I got to use my God shield, and I got to be like, well, I asked God for forgiveness. Do you believe me that I asked God for forgiveness? He forgave me.
I believe you.
You believe me? she believes me. It's like, I asked for forgiveness. He forgave me. And then it's like, oh, I protected myself against the arrows of criticism. And, and then everything goes back to the way that it was until they do the bad thing again. And then this shield comes up. Oh, I asked for God for forgiveness. And they hide behind their shield again. So, I mean, that's what I see in religion. And, I mean, people use that kind of thing in power systems and everything like that exist in our modern day, like, somebody that's in a power position that can hide their shit and everything using that power position. But from like just criticism in general, like religious people are the ones that use their worldview, their religion, in order to hide their bad moral actions. I mean, that's what I see. Like, I don't see atheists out there somehow using atheism in order to hide their bad moral actions. Of course, we also have to understand what Dinesh D'Souza thinks is a bad moral action, like, being part of the LGBTQ community. He would see that as an immoral action or an immoral group, and you would be an immoral person. And if you don't want to be judged by God, you just leave Christianity. But he fails to recognize that there are plenty of Christians out there that are part of the LGBTQ community. They've been perfectly fine reconciling, all of that with their religion. And you can do that with just about everything in Christianity that you would consider quote unquote sinful, with the exception of believing in Jesus. And like I said before, religious people are the ones that use their belief in Jesus in order to shield themselves from criticism of their bad moral actions. When light is shown on their bad moral actions, where's the first place that they go to? Every single fucking time a religious leader gets caught with child porn, molesting children, embezzling money, cultivating a cult-like mentality, where do they go? Oh, well, this is between me and God. I'm going to take some time to get right with God. Oh, I've got to go and get right with God. Y'all just don't need to worry about any other kind of like repercussions for my heinous actions. I'm just going to get right with God and then everything will be okay. You just throw up that fucking shield.
I remember, I guess a couple of decades ago, I read a powerful essay by the Czech Nobel laureate, and his name is Czeslaw Milosz. And the essay was called The Discreet Charm of Nihilism. What an interesting title. Nihilism itself has a certain kind of charm. Now, what does he argue? He argues that in order to escape from an eternal fate in which our sins are punished, man seeks to free himself from religion. And now the quote.
But I mean, if you're a Christian, then your sins are forgiven. So again, I ask, where's the motivation? I'm fairly certain that Dinesh, but considering they said it's not that atheists sin or do evil things more than Christians, it's just that they don't have the protection of Jesus, right? So my question is, where is the motivation for atheists to actually leave their religion? Like, if we cared at all about God and his judgment and his whole criteria for sins, I mean, if we actually cared about that, then I mean, we would just be, we could just be Christians easily, because there's a way to wash away all the sins. There's an easy rectifier for that. If you are a Christian, you believe in Jesus as the only way to get to heaven and to God, then you're already saved. Your sins, it's not that you stop doing sins or stop committing sins. You just have to ask Jesus for forgiveness, and you're perpetually clean. So I don't like that's a big barrier for me, is where's the motivation here? I don't see any motivation, because we don't think like Christians. Well, in some respects, some atheists out there still think like Christians. But as far as the theology of Christianity goes, we don't think theologically about Christianity the same way that Dinesh and other apologists and other Christians do. So it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me to say that there's this motivation to leave when there's literally no motivation.
A true opium of the people is a belief in nothingness after death, the huge solace of thinking that for our betrayals, greed, cowardice, murders, we are not going to be judged.
Now, if somebody already doesn't believe in God, then we're not concerned with how God's going to judge us. So, but if you do believe in God, then none of those actions are going to matter either. So it kind of seems like both atheists and religious people, or Christians in this respect, are kind of on the same playing field here, because Christians, if they are a murderer, they get forgiven of that sin. If they do any of the heinous things that Dinesh listed off, they are forgiven of their sins. If we're an atheist, which I know he said nihilism, he mentioned nihilism and he portrayed atheism as being nihilistic, but atheism is not nihilistic. But he's saying that atheists, they escape God's judgment by refusing to believe in God, and by that we are escaping this judgment coming from God for the heinous acts that we commit. But if one person that's an atheist commits these heinous acts, he's got to rectify that in reality, in our culture, in society. That person has to rectify those things. Whereas in Christianity, well, a Christian does reside in this society, so in that way they do rectify it, like in reality. As far as like their thoughts on an afterlife go, if they commit a murder, they are not actually like judged by that murder when they get to heaven. If they're a Christian, their sin is forgiven. So they don't have to worry about murder or any of the heinous acts either, because they're already forgiven. So it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense here. It actually, there seems to be more of a motive for somebody to be Christian, feign Christianity, if you will, just so that they can shield themselves by saying, oh, well, I asked God for forgiveness and he forgave me. I'm working this out with God. And it shields them from the criticism of others, and it shields them from having to actually rectify that, as we've seen in many church communities where they keep shit secret about priests molesting small children or priests doing these heinous acts. And, they pray to God, they ask for forgiveness, and people, they just let it go. They don't demand justice. And it's not like justice is going to be served in the afterlife, because they're praying to their God. They're asking for forgiveness. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many times a priest rapes a child. If he asks for forgiveness, then he will get into heaven. I don't see where we're being judged. I don't see the need to escape judgment, because there's already a solution in place.
So basically, as Milosh is arguing, the Marxist doctrine needs to be revised or actually turned on its head. Remember, Marx called religion the opium or opiate of the people, but it's not religion that's the opiate of the people, but atheism that is the opiate of the morally corrupt. Morally corrupt people like atheism because they feel like, wow, if I'm an atheist, I don't have any moral accountability.
Actually, I would say that there's more moral accountability in atheism, because for one thing, in atheism, we don't have this ability to ask for forgiveness and everything just gets washed away, because it's more difficult, like without God. I said on atheism, but I'm getting tricked into using his the way that he talks. But without God, regardless of God, that's much harder to deal with, our morally negative or heinous acts, right? It's more difficult over there, whereas in Christianity, you just got to ask for forgiveness. In the context that he's talking about, all you got to do is ask for forgiveness and you're fine, right? Over here, without God, without his God, it's a lot more difficult, because, you have to rectify your actions. You don't necessarily have to, but you definitely don't have to in Christianity, as far as like being forgiven by God goes. Over here, you commit a heinous act, you've got to actually deal with your decisions. Whereas you don't have to over here a lot of the times. I'm not saying this like monolithically, like all Christians do this. I'm saying that in the context that Dinesh D'Souza is speaking in right here, you don't have, all you got to do is ask for forgiveness and you're fine. That's it. There's no motivation to leave the faith when you have that perfect way to just wash out all that sin. And if you notice before, at the beginning of this, he said, well, it's not that atheists commit more sin. It's just that they don't have to ask God for forgiveness. Like, that's literally the only difference, is that, oh, these people don't ask God for forgiveness. They don't feel like they need to ask God for forgiveness. And because of that, people are drawn to that. I honestly had no problem asking for God for forgiveness when I was a child and growing up in the church. I mean, you're literally taught to do that, like, every fucking time you pray. So I don't see the motivation here.
If you want to live a degenerate life, well, God is your mortal enemy.
I don't see how, God is our mortal enemy if we want to live a degenerate life. There are plenty of Christians out there that live degenerate lives, but are Christian. And when they get to heaven, they will not be judged by those moral actions because Jesus has already died for those moral actions. He's already washed them away with his blood, which is creepy in its own right. But regardless of that, Jesus has already provided a solution. They do heinous acts all the time over there. They commit atrocities over there. And all they have to do is ask God for forgiveness. And it's fine. Psychologically, they're fine. Well, they're not fine, but what I'm saying is that they can reconcile their heinous acts by just asking the magical sky wizard for forgiveness. Whereas people without God, regardless, or people that are irreligious, we don't have that luxury. We actually have to deal with our heinous acts. Heinous crimes.
Represents a lethal danger to your selfishness, greed, lechery, hatred. It's in your interest to despise him and do whatever you can to rid the universe of his presence.
Are you listening to this? No? He claims that atheists want to rid the universe of God's presence. How do you get off saying that? Like, I literally don't.
To believe in God.
Yeah, right. That requires us to believe in God to want to rid his presence from everywhere. Like, holy shit. We don't believe in your God. We don't give a shit about whether or not you believe in God. We do care about what, your beliefs inform you to do. So I guess in that respect, we care. But as far as whether or not somebody believes in God, I don't give a fuck.
And so there are powerful attractions to living in a God-free world. In such a world, we can model ourselves on Milton's Satan, or at least on one of the junior devils in Paradise Lost. This is Belial, who was, as Milton puts it, quote, to vice industrious, but to nobler deeds timorous and slothful. So this is a guy who takes pleasure in vice and is very lazy when it comes to doing good deeds. And that's how many people are. And these are the people who are attracted to atheism because it gives them a certain kind of moral cover or amoral cover for doing that.
Here at Godless Engineer, at least, we do what we can to donate to good causes. And he makes it out to be like people that are atheists are only atheists so that they can be selfish and just shitty human beings. And, I think that it's more about the person that you are as to whether or not you're a shitty human being. Because some of the most religious people that I've either heard of or known, have been, shitty people. They've been shitty themselves. And then some of the kindest people that I've ever met have been atheists. So I feel like he's just pushing more propaganda. He's pushing more false information about atheists because he's pushing the propaganda as it's preached by his Bible. His Bible demonizes the outgroup. The people that don't believe in his God are controlled by demons, or they're influenced by demons, or they want to do all these bad things. But when Dinesh says they want to do these heinous acts, heinous crimes, they want to do all these bad things, and so they leave the religion because they're attracted to not being held accountable. When I see no accountability in Christianity. I mean, obviously he portrays, God judging us at the end of our lives as being held accountable, but we're not really held accountable for our actions there. And he paints atheists as being these immoral, lazy fucking people that don't want to do any good. And I know that's something that his Bible says, is that, atheists are people that don't believe in his particular God. They do no good. They are fools and all this other shit. And it ultimately comes back to there's no motivation in Christianity to leave Christianity if we want to do bad things. People in Christianity can do bad things, and he even admitted that Christians do bad things. They just have a way to ask for forgiveness. Whatever bad things they do don't matter at the end of their lives. And I feel like on a side that is irreligious, we actually have to deal with the decisions that we make. We are held accountable for the decisions that we make. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Think about it. If God does not exist, the 7 deadly sins are not terrors to be overcome, but, well, temptations to be enjoyed.
Well, I would definitely say that the 7 deadly sins don't exist as sins. Are those bad traits at times? Sure. But, I feel like it's very much an all or nothing kind of thing. It's either you're just fully engulfed in what he calls the 7 deadly sins. What was that? Sloth, greed. I can't name all the 7 deadly sins. Let's see. Let's see. Love, lust, gluttony, and greed. Wrath, envy, pride. Hold on. Gluttony, let's see. From the 4th century, the 7 deadly sins are gluttony, prostitution, or fornication, which would be lust, greed, sadness, wrath, dejection, boasting, and pride. Let's see. Gluttony, lust, greed, sorrow, wrath, sloth, vainglory, and pride is another one from some other point in time. So let's see. Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, pride. I feel like going back to the whole it's either all or nothing is how he's portraying it. He's portraying it as this dichotomy that it's either all, you want to take part in all of these or none of these, and that's like Christianity and not Christianity. And I feel like you can enjoy in moderation. And Dinesh D'Souza is presenting this as if if you enjoy lust or sex or whatever, you go full forward with it and you're just totally immoral in your sexual appetite or whatever. But I feel like all of these things can be enjoyed in moderation. I mean, gluttony is not exactly moderation, but at times, like as far as greed goes, it might be okay to be greedy, and it kind of depends on how you are greedy. Like full on greed, obviously, I feel like that could potentially be bad. But people would call other people greedy for having like a savings account, or you could call somebody greedy for not donating 10% to the church. You could call somebody greedy for literally nearly anything. And it's all about perspective and about moderation, because I think that you can enjoy all of these things in moderation. Like sloth, I, on the weekends, will not get out of bed before like 9 or 10 o'clock, which seems to be slothy to me. And that's like perspective. Also, I do it in moderation. Saturdays and Sundays, instead of going to church and feeling like shit, I stay in bed and have sex occasionally. Like, it's fine. I'm just saying that, like, he's very black and white with this. It's either full force or none at all. And he has no concept of moderation. And I'm not saying that, like, everybody should just go full out and violate the 7 deadly sins or whatever. But I just feel like you can, have a good, rational, and reasonable head about you and enjoy things in life. Enjoy having money. Enjoy making money. It's fine as long as you're not like, doing these heinous crimes in order to get these things. I feel like you're going to be fine. I have a low battery. Let's get through this.
And death, which was previously viewed as a justification for morality, now becomes a justification for immorality. Now, interestingly, the philosopher who understood all this was Nietzsche. And contrary to modern atheists who say,
I don't know if y'all know this, but when you get to heaven, your moral actions are not judged. You're only judged for believing in me. Thank you.
Sorry about that, hon.
I don't really need to know what that stupid ass says.
KC don't need to know what that stupid ass says. Dragon Master says Christians treat their religion is like a buffet. They pick and choose what they like and ignore what they don't. That's true. A lot of Christians do. They like to pick and choose what they like out of their religion. And even sometimes they like to pick new things that aren't necessarily on the menu, but they're like, you know what? I feel like you might have it back there in the back, and they might manage to find it. And so they figure out how to rectify their personal worldviews with their religion. They mold their religion to their worldview. I mean, it happens all the time.
The morality.
Oh. Oh, apparently this one's dead.
Oh, it was working for me. Sorry.
Oh, it shut off or whatever.
It does. It actually does mean that, because God is the source of the moral law. And so if God is dead, Nietzsche, of course, coined the phrase, the death of God, then God's death means that the ground has been swept out from under us. We have become, in a sense, ethically groundless.
Well, so, this is kind of going back to what I was talking about before with Christianity providing this moral foundation that he's talking about here. And I sincerely disagree with him on this, because in Christianity, there's not an absolute moral foundation, and God is definitely not the foundation which we should be basing our morality off of. I mean, God, I usually point out either Leviticus 25:44 through 46, where God lays out how you can buy slaves. God approves of slavery. There's all the instances in the Bible where God has people selling women into sexual slavery, which would be forced marriages, or as concubines, or as the servants that also serve as sexual objects to the one man in the house. Thinking of Jacob / Israel, who had 2 wives, and then each wife had a concubine that the dude could like procreate with. And there's that. There's also in Numbers 31:17-18 where God commands the Israelites to go in, kill like small children and babies and everything like that, but to take the young virgin girls as spoils of war. And they were forced into marriages in the Israelite community, and that's a form of sexual slavery. So if you want me to base my moral foundation upon God, or God is the moral foundation of all of humanity for all time, I feel like that is not going to end well. There are several things that are part of God's moral foundation that are not acceptable now. They are abhorrent now. And you can't make a rational argument that says, oh, God didn't really mean to force young girls into sexual slavery. That's not what he was doing. Like, you can make an argument, but it's going to be fucking ridiculous. So no, I don't think that Christianity provides an absolute moral foundation. Now, has modern Christianity, does it have a moral foundation that seems to mesh pretty well with the social norms? Yes, but that's because religion molds to the social norms as they change. The social norms of a society change, and then religion changes along with it, usually, trailing behind it, because religion wants things to stay the way that it is all the time, right? They want to maintain the status quo as it exists for them. And it's only when society changes, those societal norms change, does the church sort of rethink their interpretation of God's absolute word and his absolute moral foundation. So you can't bullshit me with this whole idea that God provides a foundation for morality, or that God is the foundation for morality, because that's bullshit. No matter what I've done in my life, I have a much better sense of morality than his fucking God.
And there is no more refuge to be taken in appeals to dignity, equality, compassion, and all the rest, because all that we have is the abyss not just of God, but of morality.
Honestly, I feel like, without God, I definitely have a much better sense of morality. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that leaving religion causes you to become a better person. I think that there are perfectly good people on either side of this discussion. But I will say that religion can get otherwise good people to believe and do bad things. I think that it can be convincing to some people to do heinous acts, because that is what religion is crafted to do: control people and get people to do things that whoever's utilizing the religion want them to do. So is it better to be without God? I don't think that it's better in this particular context. It doesn't seem to be better, but it also, I feel like it's better not to be as susceptible to the control mechanisms that are built into Christianity. To be without that possibility, I feel, is better off for you. That's why I would also classify myself as an anti-theist.
But, unlike some other Victorians who saw things Nietzsche's way, but were worried by it, terrified by it. Matthew Arnold wrote his famous poem, Dover Beach, about the receding sea of faith. Nietzsche welcomed the abyss. Nietzsche was, as he described himself, an immoralist. And he says that the good thing about an abyss is that it enables us for the first time to escape guilt.
I mean, you can still feel guilt without God. I mean, he's talking about Nietzsche as if Nietzsche is the arbiter of atheism, which I believe that he's talking more about nihilism than he is about atheism. And nihilism doesn't have to be this, everything is worthless and meaningless and there's no morals and there's no guilt for your moral actions. I mean, I feel like some people can feel that way, but that's definitely not what atheism entails. And that's not a draw like coming from Christianity, because like I said, there's no motivation to leave Christianity in that particular respect. Christianity has a mechanism to wash away sins, to reconcile those sins without any kind of like psychological issues for the person that they have to deal with. Whereas over here, we don't give a shit about God's definition of sin or what it means to transgress God's opinion. We don't give a shit about all of that. So, I mean, both sides have ways to reconcile like their evil or bad actions. It's just that on the atheist side, we have a little bit harder time because we are actually held accountable for it. And over here, they just have to ask for forgiveness. I'm not the one that made the rules. Christianity is the one that made the rules for them.
It vanquishes the dragon of obligation. It enables us to live, in Nietzsche's phrase, beyond good and evil. Morality is no longer given to us from above. It now becomes something we devise for ourselves.
I mean, we even in Christianity, you devise your own moral foundation. Like a lot of Christians now, like if there's something that somebody asks them to do that's just beyond, like just flat out ask them, like your priest asks you to murder a baby. I mean, I would hope most people would be like, no, this does not seem right. But I mean, religion can be hell of a drug and can convince people to do heinous things like that, which is why I feel like it's a bit negative to be religious in that kind of way. But my point with this is that it's not like our accountability and our guilt and all that just go away, or we're left without it if we leave Christianity. Christianity doesn't hold the corner, or isn't the arbiter of guilt and all this other shit. Even though they would probably feel like they are that, they are not. We still feel guilt. It's like he's saying, oh, if you don't want to feel guilt about the bad shit you do, then you become an atheist. It's like people in Christianity do bad shit all the time and they don't feel guilty. They just ask for forgiveness and their guilt is absolved. I got to go back a little bit because I think I went off the rails a little.
Obligation. It enables us to live, in Nietzsche's phrase, beyond good and evil. Morality is no longer given to us from above. It now becomes something we devise for ourselves.
Right. So in Christianity, they devise their own moral foundation. They decide what we mentioned before, the buffet Christianity. They pick and choose what they like out of their faith, and that becomes their moral foundation. That's what's good, bad, right, and wrong to them. And this has happened all throughout history. Christianity has changed over time, because society has changed. But the important aspect here is that religion has changed. Christianity has changed its moral foundation through the ages. So you can't sit there and say that, like, oh, this is an unchanging moral foundation, or that people aren't dictating what is the moral foundation over here. They have done that. It's just that it's organized into these different denominations and these different churches and everything like that. Each church has their own sort of moral foundation that they have picked for themselves, and then the individual parishioners or the people that go to those churches or are part of those denominations, they also pick and choose what they like to have and as part of their moral foundation. This is no different than not believing in God and having to decide for yourself what is good, bad, right, or wrong. Both Christians and atheists do that.
Morality requires a comprehensive remaking, what Nietzsche calls a transvaluation of values. And the old codes of thou shalt not are now replaced by I will. I've been talking about
That's how he ended it. I will do this. Also, did he put like an odd emphasis on the trans part? Like he was trying to like trigger people that are watching him and says like, this is a transvaluation. And it just seemed to sting a little bit more when he said trans. I mean, anyways, Dinesh D'Souza's a shithead in general. And I feel like, hold on, get back to here. I feel like in this video by Dinesh, what he's essentially trying to say is that Christianity offers accountability for bad actions. And atheism is where you go if you don't want to be held accountable. If you want to escape, being held accountable for this moral foundation over here, you escape by going to atheism. But he leaves out strategically, leaves out certain facets of Christianity, like the fact that you can ask for forgiveness, the fact that this asking for forgiveness is unconditional as long as you don't blaspheme God. It's unconditional. You can do anything over here and you can be forgiven of your sins. Over here, you can do anything and God's opinion doesn't fucking matter because you don't believe in God, and whatever God thinks is a sin doesn't matter to you because you don't believe in God. So they're on equal playing fields here. Each one has a way to rectify or absolve these perceived transgressions. It's just that the atheists, the ones without God, they actually have to reconcile this either with themselves or with their community or with their society. Whereas, and then the religious people in this particular context, they just get to say, oh, I asked God for forgiveness. He forgave me. This has all washed away. There's no problem here. And then when they die and they go to heaven, God judges them. Doesn't matter what they've done, they still get into heaven. Because if you notice over here on without God, we're more focused on the here and now, this reality, this lifetime, because it's the only life that we got. So we have to reconcile not only with ourselves, but with people around us, with our communities and all that. Whenever morally bad shit has been Gesundheit.
So sorry about that.
You're okay. Whenever we do morally bad shit over here. But over here on this side, the concern isn't the here and now. Remember, he bitched about the whole temporal nature of everything else. And so over here, he's not concerned about this life. He doesn't give a fuck about this life. He's focused on what happens at the end of your life. You are judged by God, according to Christianity. What does God judge you by? Whether or not you believe in Jesus. So literally nothing that you do while you're alive and a Christian matters, because Jesus has washed that away with his blood. For some fucking reason he uses his blood, but his blood has washed all that away. And so it doesn't matter. This person over here that's an atheist commits a murder, and he has to rectify committing that murder with himself. He could be fine with it. He could feel guilty about it. It more than likely affects people around him, so he's going to be held accountable in that way. Of course, a Christian would also be held accountable, but as far as like what they're concerned with being the end of their lives and being judged by God, they don't have to worry about anything as long as they stay a Christian. So there's literally no motivation. Like if somebody wants to commit a murder as a Christian, all they have to do is convince themselves that this is what God wants. And you can't say that it hasn't happened, because it has happened. You can see it all the time in the news. Crazy religious people convinces themselves that God wants them to kill a person, and so they kill a person, and they believe in God, they ask for forgiveness and all this other stuff, and they feel absolved for their sins. At the end of their life, they're already forgiven by God. They believe in Jesus, and they get to go to heaven. So it literally doesn't matter what moral actions you commit on this particular theological structure. It doesn't matter if you do bad things or do good things. You're just forgiven and you get into heaven. Jane Pusecker sent in her member chat saying it seems non-Christians do better with accountability than fundamentalist Christians do. Why is that? Do better with accountability. Well, so as far as accountability goes, I feel like we have to understand, like we got to decide what accountability exactly means. On the non-Christian side, accountability means holding people accountable for their actions. Like if they do something bad, like they murder another person, we hold them accountable for that. We hold a trial, we decide whether or not they actually did it first, and then we sentence them and we do all of that. So that's what accountability looks like on the non-Christian side. But if you define accountability like a fundamentalist would define accountability, and that would be in light of God being held accountable, like God is going to be the one to judge you for that bad action, for that murder that you committed, then atheists are not held accountable. Fundamentalists feel like they're being held accountable because God has already judged them as being sinful and deserving of death, but they ask for forgiveness through Jesus Christ, and they're absolved of that. And so in their mind, they are held accountable. So but in reality, as far as in our society, in our communities, are they actually held accountable for that? Well, most of the time, since we still live in a society, they're still held accountable by society. But that's where this whole, what is the concern of each? Because Christians are concerned with being held accountable by God. They don't care about being held accountable by judges, by our societies, by our communities, by our loved ones. They don't care about that. All they care about is whether or not they're accountable to God. Whereas atheists or non-Christian people, non-religious people, I would say, we're held accountable by society, and we don't care about God. So we care about being held accountable by society. So, I think that's kind of the difference there. And I think the fundamentalists, if they can get by without being held accountable by society, they will. Because they don't care about being held accountable by society. They don't care about being held accountable by their loved ones or by any person here on earth. The only thing they care about is being held accountable by God. And that's it. And that's why they do worse with actual accountability. Thank you so much, Jane, for your member chat. And thank you so much for continuing to be a member. All in all, was not convinced by Dinesh D'Souza's video here. It just seems like he's preaching from a propaganda book. He's trying to convince people that atheists are these evil creatures that just want to sin, and they want to lust, and they want to be greedy, and they want to be slothy, which, greedy and slothy doesn't really make a lot of sense. Honestly, if I could make a ton of money while just laying on the couch playing with my balls, I would. I'm not going to open up an OnlyFans. No, that's not going to happen. But I feel like in that respect, that's definitely not slothy. Like I'm assuming you got to put a lot of work into that. In any case, what I mean is if I could just lay around and not do anything and produce money, then I don't see anything wrong with that necessarily. I don't see anything wrong with that. Anyways, but Dinesh was just not convincing at all. And I feel like he's obviously painting us in this light that's influenced by his propagandistic holy text. And that's just never going to be convincing to me. And I don't think that it should be convincing to anybody else. I would hope that most people could see through the bullshit here. Can you detect the bullshit? I hope that you can, because it definitely is bullshit coming from Dinesh D'Souza. His entire background was lined with the bullshit that he's been making. Anyways, that's going to be it for me tonight. We've got some interesting stuff coming out next week. We've got, is Jesus a copycat of previous religious figures? And then we've also got the first part of a 2-part video about reasons evolution is false. So if you want to get caught up on that, then definitely check us out next week. If you will, please go down below. Let me know what y'all think about this video tonight. And while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens. But hold up, don't go, because we got the Skeptic Mafia content coming. If you guys don't know, the Skeptic Mafia gets to pick the video for the Friday night stream, and they get to leave a comment. And I'm betting tonight's comments are probably pretty extensive, so I'm not going to be able to read like extremely long comments like I know some people probably would want to leave. Oh, there's only 4 comments tonight. So we might actually be able to get through this pretty quick. All right. Hold on. I gotta get this all centered up and stuff. Okay, so first up is Drew's book reviews. Thank you so much for being a member there, Drew. If you too want to have your comments read live on the Friday night stream, consider joining the Skeptic Mafia. Not only does it help us donate to the great charities that we pick, like the Trevor Project, but you also get to leave your thoughts that I'll mostly read through. Drew's book review says, I was going to write a big, long comment about how stupid this guy's arguments are and how he is assuming motives and rationale without actually understanding or trying to understand the reason people become atheists to begin with, but then thought, why? What's the point? These people will never understand until they themselves become victims of the horrendous and disgusting morality and unmeasurable harms caused by religious ideology. Then and only then they might begin to understand that not a single point he covered is why many atheists are not religious. I definitely agree with that. He obviously did no research into why people actually are atheists. He's, like I said, reading from a propagandistic book, the Bible, and he's making decisions based on that. So the only thing that can ever exist for Dinesh D'Souza are crazy vampire atheists that don't want to be held accountable for their immoral as fuck actions. That's the only thing that exists for him. Yeah, bichachos is what Casey said. That's right. Bichachos. I should do up a shirt that just has like a nacho and it just says bichachos. I thought much along the same lines as this guy did once upon a time till my kids were starting to get to the age that the teaching of my loving God would start to cause harm to them. I voiced my concern, and that is when I started to see the true colors of what God's love really means. That morality is what pushed me to experience one of the most emotionally difficult times of my life. In the words of Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, widely known to be a member of the LDS Church, the church I was raised in, I'm ready for the fall. I'm ready for the fall. Maybe I'm destined to be distraught. Always a reason. Breaking me down to my knees in the dead of night. I keep on praying to see the light. Oh, maybe I'm breaking up with myself. Maybe I'm thinking I should just keep to the things that I've been told. I'm ready for everything that I believed in to drift away. Do you know? You're all I know. When everything comes crashing down, you're all I know. Anyway, that is all I had to say. Until next time, heathens, keep on reading. P.S. Guess I still left a long comment. Thank you there, Drew. Next up is Jonathan Nickel, who says, hidden motives of skepticism? The motive of skepticism is to dismiss unfounded claims, and it is not hidden. Atheism has no motive. I agree. As for moral accountability, I am accountable to the people around me. If I wrong someone, I apologize and I try to make amends to them. I don't just ask some supposed God figure to forgive my sins. In that sense, I would say it is the Christians who are hiding from true accountability. A child asking their imaginary friend if they will agree to play with them again is not going to make any difference in the real world. As for what might apply to this life, demonstrate that there is another life to follow, then we can talk about what matters there. The same goes for Christian claims of judgment. As for the difference between reality and the way you want things to be, I'd say skeptic is far closer to the truth than the one truth on that score than Dinesh. As for hiding from sin, Dinesh needs to demonstrate the existence of God. Otherwise, who is there to sin against? After a long quote full of nonsense, he talks about atheism as moral cover. Utter nonsense, especially when Christians use their religion as a supposed justification for the mistreatment of children or the LGBTQ plus community, and for denying the rights of women to make decisions concerning their own bodies. Until Christians accept that human rights of people they disagree with, they have no right to the moral high ground. Totally agree. I think you said that in a very, a much clearer fashion than I did. Next up is Jester Ninjesta. Says, I don't believe in light? Bro, that's how my eyeballs work. I 100 believe that exists, and if it doesn't, then for all intents and purposes, it does because it works. Without God, there is no morality. But if your arguments are true, then God could decide that bad stuff doesn't happen, and it just wouldn't. Well, that can't be right. That would make absolutely anyone more moral than God, because God allows all that depravity to exist. Wait, it says here that he's omniscient too? So your fictional Sky Daddy supposedly watches all the bad stuff happen? I've never wanted a restraining order against a fictional character, but I do now. Well, join the Skeptic Mafia today and do more for the fight against immorality than Sky Daddy ever would today by supporting causes like the Trevor Project, who stand vigil 24/7 to step in to protect LGBTQ youths and make their voices heard alongside your own. Yeah, youths. The LGBT youths. So the Trevor Project is a really good charity. I'm really happy to be donating to them this month. So definitely help us do that. And then finally we got Deus Ex Tomato, who's always got the best ASCII library out there. Deus says, this man wouldn't know moral accountability if it bit him in the ass, then made a second pass at him and bit his dick. Yeah. He has to be one of the most morally corrupt Christians I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of them. I can't even listen to Dinesh after all the lying he does. So that just means ASCII time. Yeah, Dinesh had that little blow up where he was cheating on his wife at one point. And I mean, you know, he just used religion to cover up any accountability for, you know, those actions. So there you go. Anyways, ASCII time, and it's just a Bender. It's a Bender. It says, because he can bite Bender's shiny metal ass. But if you don't want to bite Bender's shiny metal ass, you can go ahead and smash that like button or gently caress it. That works too. But whatever you do, please do go ahead and subscribe. That'll definitely make John's day. It definitely will. If you subscribe, I will definitely be giddy. Giddy as shit. Once you've done that, join the Skeptic Mafia, where you'll insert a generic shilling here. You'll be helping us donate to the Trevor Project, but you also get a member hangout once a month, which I need to figure out a time this month to do it. It'll have to be relatively soon because I know we're in the middle of the month now. But in any case, you get that. We do a podcast on occasion. We're going to need to try to figure out a time where we can do the podcast this week. So we'll figure that out. But in any case, definitely think about joining the Skeptic Mafia. I'd really appreciate it. And we guarantee you will not regret it. And remember, Casey is always right, especially when she's wrong. Eat your goddamn fruits and vegetables because tomatoes are goddamn delicious. Tomato out. And that's it. That's all four of them. Thank you so much there, Deus Ex Tomato. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everybody that has done a super chat tonight. Deviant Outcast did a member chat saying that's cause there's no comment from me in there. Anywho, bad news, time's come. I have to suspend my Mafia ship for the time being, but I'll be back. That's perfectly fine. Thank you so much for being a Skeptic Mafia member there, Deviant Outcast. I appreciate you. Jane, okay, I read Jane's one. So, yes. All right. Awesome. You guys are awesome tonight. You know, we've going a little bit over to about 2 hours.
What's up, heathens? I just real quick.
I accidentally hit a button. Oh no. Anyways, I gotta get out of here. My voice is getting all cracky and shit, and I just want to go and relax. It's crack-a-lack-a-dackin', and I will be seeing you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.